It's so funny that we always are told you never judge a book by its cover. You never judge a book by its cover. But if you've ever walked into any bookstore, you've ever been in any magazine aisle, you look at the magazine, you're like, oh no, cover that up, cover that up. Oh, what book is that? Get that out of here. So why do we do the same thing for podcast cover art? Why do we always judge podcast value based on their cover art? I don't know. But either way, what I do want you to know is that we're going to dive all the way in and I'm going to show you how you can create your podcast cover art. I'm going to give you 3 ways to where you can have dope cover art for your next podcast. Let's go ahead and get into the intro. Welcome to the Your Podcast Mentor Show with Jonathan Jones. Here you will learn how to start, launch, and monetize your podcast. In addition to hearing the latest trends and the latest and greatest things happening in the podcast industry. Are you ready? What's going on, my friend? Welcome to the Your Podcast Mentor Show. I'm your host, Jonathan Jones, and I'm excited today. As always, every episode, every time I get to talk about podcasting, I get a little bit out of my mind, a little bit out of my head. And we're going to dive in today, and I'm going to show you a few different ways on how we can create podcast cover art. There we go. Right. How we can create podcast cover art. And if you're out here and you're watching on YouTube, I would encourage you to go ahead and smash that subscribe button. Or if you're listening in any audio platform, down in the show notes, we'll have the YouTube link for you to where you can subscribe and be a part of our YouTube tribe and community. All right. So when we talk about podcast cover art, okay, the first thing I want us to always identify and understand is this, okay? First thing I want to make sure that we get, you have to make it attractive to people, all right? Making it attractive to people doesn't mean that you have to break the bank, doesn't mean that you have to spend $150, $500, $700, $1,200. You don't have to do all these things, okay? And I'm going to share with you a few resources so that you specifically do not. But there are a few certain standards, or there's a few lines that we like to color inside of, okay? And the first line that we color inside of that we have to make sure that we know, we have to make sure that we understand, that would be the dimensions, okay? And the dimensions based on Apple's standards. On the low end, it would be 1400 by 1400. And then on the high end to meet the Apple standards, it would ultimately be 3000 by 3000. All right. So that's what determines the quality of your cover art, right? If you ever downloaded one of those pictures online to where it's like kind of blurry and it's gritty, that's because they have a low dimension, because the dimensions represent the pixels. Right, so that's 1400 by 1400 pixels, which will give us a good quality cover art. However, 3000 by 3000 is the maximum, and that will give you the highest level of pixels within those 3000 by 3000, and that will give us quality there. All right, so now understanding that, I want to show you my first podcast cover art. Right, because I'm getting excited. I'm getting ready to start my podcast. I'm like, yes. It's time for me to start my podcast. It's time for me to do the dang thing. So I went out and I found somebody. We're talking back and forth. She said, I can do the graphics, John, if you need me to. And I said, okay, cool. Then I said, how much would you charge? She was like, oh, John, we'll just do it for $150 and I'll give you a couple of variations. I just said, cool. I didn't know no better. I just said, cool. So then the first graphic art that we came up with was this one right here. And once again, if you're not watching on YouTube, I would encourage you to tune in so you can check out the visual aesthetic. So on this one, you see this image of me. It's a high definition image of me. And then you see these quality fonts, and it has like a gradient almost on the title, right? And then here, as you can see, it says JonathanJonesSpeaks.com at the top. That's my name one time. Then it says Jonathan Jones Speaks as Jonathan Jones Speaks the podcast. That's my name 2 times. And then my logo down at the bottom, it says Jonathan Jones Speaks. It says my name 3 times on this cover art. This is something now I would encourage you in, and I would let you know that be careful of how much of yourself you're putting out there. All right. And this might be me projecting on you. So if I'm projecting, feel free to comment at the bottom of the YouTube video. Feel free to send me a DM at Jonathan Jones Speaks and be like, John, that's not me, bro. That's not my story. But I thought this was too much of me on this cover. So I said, let me go back to the drawing board. So that was my first podcast cover art. I said, nope, I don't want that. After about 6 episodes, I was like, I'm going to change the name completely. All right. I'm going to change the name completely. Because like I laid out to you all, the dimensions is the first thing that we got to understand. The second thing we have to understand is that we want the cover art to be attractive. Yeah. Why do we want the cover art to be attractive? We want the cover art to be attractive because the more attractive it is, the more likely people will be to pick it up. So the second cover art that I went about getting creative was right here. This one I have my friend create the logo. His name is Jaron Collins. Shout out to him. And then I changed the name of the podcast to Speak Your Success with Jonathan Jones. Speak Your Success Podcast with Jonathan Jones. I went into a site I'm going to provide for you in just a second. And you see the paint swipes. You see I put the logo over the top. Just put a gold bar around it. It's minimalistic, but at the same time, it's still a very clean cover art. I said, I'm going to take myself off of here. I said, I don't think I need to be on this cover. I think, as a matter of fact, I'm actually good. Right. And I went to a site for this one called canva.com. One thing that's really cool about Canva, you can go in and you can customize the dimensions. You can go in and then you can take images from other websites and then post them, and you can create a cover art. And that's what I was able to do with this image that I just showed you right here. I went in Canva, did use the logo, put some effects in the background with that paint splatter, and then put that text down at the bottom that says with Jonathan Jones. All right. So if you're somebody out there, you're like, John, I don't know nothing about graphic design. I don't know nothing about graphic arts. That would be the first suggestion that I say for you. If you have more time than money, I would say go on canva.com, and I'm going to have a link down in the show notes. And I would say create your own cover art. Okay. Then, my friends, I got a little bit further in my journey, right? Because I was doing Speak Your Success. I stopped doing Speak Your Success. Then I got to the point to where then I was doing another podcast. And this one was called Beyond the Ball. All right. And the focus of Beyond the Ball was really to help student athletes succeed beyond their degree. And the thing about Beyond the Ball was the fact that I had a little bit of experience working with Canva before. So I went in and then I created this graphic myself. You see, I have the bold font. And that's one thing I would encourage you on is think about how you want to be remembered based on the graphic art and based on the cover of your podcast. People will remember you based on the cover of your podcast. So understanding that, you see here, I have the bold font that says Beyond the Ball in really bold, right? Because I wanted to stand out. And then the next thing that I did was after getting this image, because I took an image, I made it the backdrop. All right. And then after making the image the backdrop, then I went in and I said, well, let me put this font over the top of it. And then I did a slightly separate font for down at the bottom of the cover graphic. And then that's what brought me to the point to where we are today for that podcast of Beyond the Ball. So that's where I wanted to start. And then I said, well, you know what? Let me stop right there on Beyond the Ball. So the thing I want you to understand is this right here. Okay. The thing I want you to understand is this. First things first, we got to make sure we got the dimensions, right? 1400 by 1400 or 3000 by 3000. Then we have to decide, do we have more time than money or more money than time? If we have more money than time, the suggestion I would give to you is be really clear in your request. And then you can, boom, go right there and you can work with a graphic designer. Okay, you can work with a graphic designer. You can get somebody to dress it up, design it up real nice. And they're going to cost you a little bit more. But once again, just make sure you're clear in your request. All right, make sure you're clear in your request. However, I want to show you another image, because the Beyond the Ball image I showed you first was a base image. We had the football helmet in the background. I put the bold font over the top. This was something I did myself. Then I got a little bit more money and I said, well, let me just switch this thing up. So then I had this image where I found a gentleman on Instagram who happened to be a graphic designer. And then getting with him, he was able to design this cover art where it says Beyond the Ball. The cover pops out. It has like a basketball court under, and it has these cool effects all on the cover. So he hooked me up with this one with that burgundy for the title name. It really was popping out. So I said, I enjoyed that. I really like that one. I really like that one. So far we got Canva, right? If we want to learn how to do graphic design or do our image, we got Canva.com. We have find a graphic designer to work with. They're going to cost you a little bit more. But then I want to give you one more option, my friend. I told you I was going to give you 3 options. So I'm going to give you 3 options. Then there's a website that's called Fiverr.com, Fiverr.com. This is a website to where you can show somebody an image that you like and say, can you make me something similar to this image, right? You have to be really clear in the instructions because you can't necessarily contact them by phone or by email. You just go back and forth on the website. However, I was able to get this dope graphic made here for my latest podcast, the one that you're currently listening to, your podcast mentor. And this image was made by a gentleman who I got connected with, and this one really pops, right? You see the gradient in the background. You see I have multiple fonts. You see I have the image of, well, the fonts on the bottom are 3D. They kind of pop out a little bit where it says start, launch, and monetize. And then I have an image of me slapped on there. And I wanted to show you the variation of these graphics to let you know there are multiple ways that you can create podcast cover art. Like I said, you can go in the back, you can work and try to create it yourself. I've spent probably like upwards of 3 hours when I first started learning Canva, and then until I got a better gist of it, a better idea, a better grasp of the platform. Then I went on Fiverr, started working with some people on Fiverr, making sure that I was clear in my requests and what I was asking for of them. And then I even started to get to the point to where I'm at now, to where I work with a graphic designer to get my previous cover art done. And I wanted to show you all of those just to let you know that there are many different ways to skin a podcast cat, right? There are many different ways, but I wanted to dive in today and show you those variations and show you that there is evolution through this podcast journey. So if you're in the midst and you're still confused on, how do you get your podcast cover art created, or you're in a spot to where you're like, John, I'm not even on that. I'm just trying to get through like my mindset. I'm just trying to get over how to organize my topics. I would encourage you to go to our website. Go to our website. I'm really proud of it, right? Let me scroll it across the bottom of the screen. It says your podcast mentor show.com. Your podcast mentor show.com. So we got it scrolling across the screen. But when you go to the website, you're going to see all the previous episodes. But down at the very, very bottom, right, there's a microphone. You can click that microphone, and then you can leave a voicemail asking me a question. and then we can feature your question right here on Your Podcast Mentor show in our segment like I like to call Podcast Q&A with JJ. All right, so if you have questions, you're still lost, still confused, for one, go to the website and then leave me a voicemail. Just talk me through what the question is, and I'll answer it live on show. And also, if you currently have a podcast cover art, I would love to hear how you got yours designed. What's the inspiration behind yours? Comment down below this video on YouTube. Comment down below, and I would just love to hear what's the inspiration behind your podcast cover art, what inspired it, what really brought it to life. But until next time, my friends, until next time, my family, this is your podcast mentor, Jonathan Jones. And I just want to let you know that we're here to help you establish your platform so that you can profit on purpose from your podcast. Till next time, family, peace and God bless.